Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Witcher Bloodletting Session 11, Bloodlines. You guys just made your way, because it was a shorter first hour, because we started a little bit late. So, more or less, you guys made your way back to the city. Finally got to leave a bit of an impression on the city. Had little chats with one another, and little successes, little failures. Met up with Malvoon. Are now in a secret place where you guys can kind of have a conversation with him. So like you know where this place is, not because you're lost or there was like magic or anything like that used. It's just you don't know the city well enough, and he walked into seemingly the basement of some random building. You believe is a residential building. So anyways, here you are downstairs with him, and he's more or less just like, you know, where does your path take you, sort of a thing. Like which way are you going? So and he looks to you guys for a response. You know, he's waiting to see what you have to say.
Well, you have magic items, right? I was wondering if you have something that might be able to provide me with a touch more control.
Control. Well, I suppose no matter which way you're going, that's something that's going to be important, considering what you are.
Exactly.
You had mentioned the first time we had met a medallion that you had found. I had seen it. So that's not something that directly gives you control over what you are, but something that mutes what you can do. As long as you wear that, you will be a bit weaker, and the magics that come out of you, that pour out of you, are held back a bit. And it's not that that will give you more control, but it might be able to reduce the negative effects of when you lose control. Because muted magic.
That's why I've been wearing it for now, yes.
But those were put onto the witch hunters for a reason. They don't like our kind. When somebody else wears that, it actually gives them a bit of resistance to our magics. It gives them ability to kind of hold back or wiggle free from the enchantments that we can do, or reduce the blasts that are done against them. So sometimes control is less about, in this format, sometimes control is less about holding back what you can do, but having what you can do not affect those around you as much. Now, of course, that is made out of, I feel like I'm pronouncing this wrong, Demetrium? Yeah,
that's right.
Okay, so that is made out of Demetrium. I do not have Demetrium in my as a supply. That's something that is rare and hard to come by, and even harder to work with. So, were you to get your hands on another one of those medallions, maybe more Demetrium in general, then perhaps that would give you some more control.
Kind of nods at that.
Do you have anything else? He says, like, honestly doubting any other Demetrium on you.
Dimeritium.
What was it?
Dimeritium.
Dimeritium. So Dimeritium. So I just pronounced it the poor way of the correct spelling. So Dimeritium. And quick question: the or I switched two words, whatever. So 2 letters. So you actually guys do, just out of game reminder, the shackles that you have that I think Messi's holding on to, actually are also made out of that, which is why they'd used it on you beforehand to like stop your magics completely.
Do I have those?
I thought it was your character holding them. I could be wrong, but somebody has
Pretty
them.
sure it would have been Leonard, yeah, because I wouldn't be. I tossed him into a lake the first chance I get.
So
I never put them on my equipment.
That's fine. And those are like a very valuable item. Like that's like worth a lot of money. So he says, do you have any more of that Dimeridium?
Actually, the witch hunters had a set of manacles they put me in.
There's not still on you. Do you have them with you?
They might be in my bag somewhere.
You fish through, easily finds them. You know, if you choose to pull them out, that's up to you.
Yeah, I'll pull them out.
So you pull them out and you kind of like place them on whatever surface is near to where you guys are standing in this basement. And the details of the basements don't really matter. The ceilings aren't very high. It's dirty. There's some storage down there. It's dark.
Wait, didn't Dunn smash them?
No, I was like thinking about it.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Didn't actually do it. So he says, "These, I am not a skilled craftsman with Dimeridium. I could give it a go, or I can try to reach out to somebody that I do know that is a bit more skilled with it. But it would take a considerable amount of time and certainly some resources to have this transformed into something else for you. It's not like it's something you can just, melt and carve. Sorry, melt and mold. But that's up to you. As you know," he says to Bran, "we don't like these things, even if," and then he turns to the Witchers, "sometimes they're necessary." So I guess that closes off that avenue. Back to the question I had posed beforehand. I have a feeling you know more than you have stated thus far. You've come back to me, and you have gained some sort of favor, but you also have a keenness to your look. Speak. We have mercantile business that we can attend to, but there is some thickness in the air. I can feel your blood boiling.
Yes, you would, wouldn't you?
He
be right.
takes note of the fact that obviously that was very pointedly said. Waits for a response.
I was adding the shackles. What's the question?
More or less, like, state your purpose.
Oh,
Just in general, or
Yeah, he's like which way? Because he can feel blood boiling amongst you guys. He can feel aggravation. He knows that there's like something lingering in the air. So like, let's get back to the mercantile business in a second. Talk. What's on your mind?
I'm not sure that it concerns you, Mage.
Well, there is the matter of the contract still, which we need him for.
yeah, I assumed that was the main concern.
I'm going to help you with the contract. That's not an issue, as we discussed beforehand. Assuming, and then he lets it linger. How did things go exactly at the camp?
We didn't get murdered on sight, which is always a positive.
Yes,
That one dwarf tried.
there's
Yeah,
animosity,
well, you're
but
fine.
Zadai is a fair and just leader of them. It's unfortunate that he has to carry the name Scoia'tael, since it has connotations that don't accurately apply. And then he turns to, Leonard, who's clearly trying to say something.
Malvoon, right?
Nods.
Name's Leonard. Now hold out my hand.
He actually will take yours, and he goes to and he shakes it, and it's one of those things where, so now that you guys know him, you know of him, you know the various things that he does, everybody can make me a perception check.
He's a freaking.
He smelled your blood. He sniffed it. He sniffed your hand.
I guess I'm just a big dum dum.
No, I mean
He took
Leonard's
his hand
probably
off
just
and he took out a jar. He's pouring blood into it.
shaking his hand. Like he's just in the action of shaking his hands. Bastion is not the most perceptive, but Tal doesn't trust these people, and Bran is very curious of all different types of magics in general. So they're like watching, and they can actually see, like, you guys just notice he shakes your hands, nothing there. But what it is that Bran and Tal notice is that as he shakes his hand, once again, his eyes seem to gain this like extreme focus for a moment. It's like they don't even move slightly. Like he never breaks eye contact. Like he's staring off into something. And you can see it's almost imperceivable. His lips move slightly as he mutters something under his breath that nobody can hear what he says, but he mutters something. And he shakes your hands. And then then the last big tell that he has is he almost gives himself like a slight nod, like almost if somebody picked up a hand of cards that they really like, they give themselves like I'm happy with this, or like I have like a knowing. He gives himself a slight nod, like he understands something. Mm-hmm. So he shakes your hand and says, "Pleasure."
Listen, Malvoon, how much have you worked with those dwarfs?
A considerable amount.
So you've heard the rumors then?
He waits, looks upon all of you guys. It's not like this guy's like super insightful, so he's trying to read you guys. I imagine one of you is more plain and obvious in what he's referring to than the others. So kind of staring at probably Bastion more than the rest.
Yeah.
Then nods slowly and says, I may have been the source of the rumor. Not originally, but certainly giving credibility to it.
So there is some truth to it.
More than some.
You think this is probably why the witch hunters have been so adamant about this area?
Yes. Yes, I do. That's why they've been coming in. This rumor goes a little bit further than what I imagine you've heard so far. But please, continue.
So, were things different before we were here, or has it always been this aggressive war almost?
It has nothing to do with your arrival. It's more of coming to a head. They were not able to locate, or at least they weren't able to locate this boy for a long while. And now that they have, they've moved their numbers. They've come swooping in because they believe he's in the region. And they're not wrong.
Why is Zodao risking his entire village of people for the life of one boy? Who,
Because
quite
the
frankly,
implications of a non-human on a throne
Bran,
taking a human
don't be
realm.
stupid. You don't believe in dreams. It's not going to happen. Even if he gets on the throne, he'll be assassinated or murdered within a day.
Even if it doesn't happen, the implications of it possibly happening might be enough to cause chaos everywhere. It will throw the political landscape into turmoil.
All
This
it'll
is-
do is create a civil war.
You can see there's a little bit of strife in our group,
Listen to
Malcolm.
Malvoon's answer.
He waits until you guys finish. Then when Bastion says that, he nods appreciatively to you and says, I don't mean to sit here and dictate your thoughts. I simply want to share with you what I've discovered and allow you to come to your own conclusions. So, that being said, you're not wrong that this information could very easily be swept underneath a carpet or a blade, if you will. And then that would be the best case scenario for some involved. Things end quietly, relatively quietly, considering the marching troops. It could also end very poorly with a bit of a civil war, much bloodshed, chaos, and maybe more a third Northern War, whatever ends that comes. But then there is what Zadai has. His people have been oppressed for longer than any of us have lived. There was opportunity for lands to be had for the non-humans, and that opportunity was played its course and ended not in their favor, with the Elven Queen running things not so differently than how they were in human lands beforehand. Certainly did favor elves over anyone else. That is very obvious. I think what Zadai is looking for is what Zadai has. What Zadai holds close to himself is something that a lot of us have lost long ago. Hope. He thinks that despite the risks, despite what could happen, the chances of maybe having a land, not necessarily dwarven lands, because they still hold their holes in the mountains, but a land that's open to others, a land that's open for freedom, more than just what Temeria offers, which is human lands that are accepting of others to a fair degree, but actual open lands to all. That's what he has, and none of us know if this boy, should he become king, would be a good king, just, fair, and rule his people well, or if things will go sour as well. But if he does have the blood right, and he can take that, gives an opportunity to people, is that not worth dying for? Is not worth killing for? A lasting peace for your people? That's for them to decide. I know which side of this mark in history I've placed myself. I suppose, with how you've gotten yourself involved, and where your contract currently lies and can be and could in the future, you must decide that for yourselves. There are a few ways that this can play out, as we've discussed with this contract. You hold to it. You take your end of the bargain. We'll meet possibly on opposing ends of the battlefield, and may the better win. And may those that succeed reap the spoils of their success. You could completely null and void this contract and switch opposing sides. It's not easy, as I've said before, but it can be done. Or, a much easier task for all of us involved, it could be completely ignored. I could put this contract on a hold, one that you can just walk away from, siding neither this way or that, and going on with your lives doing literally anything else, and its existence won't matter to you in the least. But as I said before, there's more to this than you would learn thus far. Radovid was a savage man. He had angry outbursts. He liked the idea of war. The idea of defeating Nilfgaard was foolish. Anybody who looks back understands that, and certainly most of the educated ones at the time understood that too. Those soldiers are soldiers, and they'll do what they're told to one degree or another. Not many thoughts in their heads. But he had this ridiculous notion, and it all came from a point of self-deprivation, because he hated his taste of the others. I don't think he was necessarily a misanthrope. I think he just liked how dirty it was. I don't think this is the only child, and I know the witch hunters don't either. They have very explicitly hunted down and killed other children as well. Not one or two, but many. And I don't think this is the last child they're hunting. But it's the only one that can be confirmed, at least by myself, thus far, that is in fact someone of his bloodline.
There's no way to confirm that in a way that the Redanians would listen.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if just the Redanians listen. Politics go beyond just what the Redanians want. If you've confronted Zadai about this, I'm sure he's given you his input on this. Zadai is no fool. He's studied politics to some degree.
Without a doubt, this would spark a revolution of some kind. Would it be enough to take over and actually place him as king? Potentially not, but there would
Is that our goal?
be changes. Not necessarily. I think the goal overall is to change people's minds, because something like this isn't just going to happen overnight. Or even over the course of a month. Months.
Spoken like a true man of the court, he says, giving you a somewhat knowing look.
I think I'm with Talabest here. This whole thing seems too far-fetched to be possible. We just got out of the last war. People are still recovering. I don't think trying to start a second or a third is the best option here.
Well, then maybe now is precisely the right moment to make this move. Everyone's exhausted.
It would be a war on multiple fronts, Bran. You're talking about basically all of Redania that hates anyone that isn't a human that doesn't use magic, the Nilfgaardian overseers of Redania, and then you're talking about perhaps, let's say, all of the Scoia'tael join up with this one dwarf misfit. Even if this faction wins, you're going to have bloodshed. The Redanian nobles win and they slaughter all of the Scoia'tael. Nilfgaard still comes out on top. The Scoia'tael
stretched thin. If Nilfgaard sends its vast resources to focus down over here, perhaps other elements that have recently been taken over might decide that, hey, they still remember the time when they were free under their own rule.
It's funny how military-minded somebody with a simple upbringing like you is, he says to Bran, and not a condescending way. It's actually
When you
almost
spend the time
personal.
being persecuted, you tend to think about these sorts of things.
And even if this bastard takes the throne, you know what's going to happen? He's Radovid's child. It's just going to be a human purge instead.
He shakes his head and says, "The dwarves are more even-tempered than the humans. My hope is that his blood carries the slow and contemplative way that a mountain is altered in the winds, as opposed to the quick burning firelights that a human's life is."
I don't think we should apply human morality and human judgment to this half-dwarf child.
There's also a
Don't think we
reason why
should.
he's been placed with Zadai. He could have been placed with others that could have made this happen quicker. He could have placed with other bands in the Scoia'tael, people that could have pushed this forward. He's being placed with a man that you've met yourself. Tell me your opinion of Zadai.
He was very deliberate in everything he did, everything he said.
Frankly, I think he's going about this all the wrong way.
Even if you think his methods are wrong, you can agree that his temperament is that of a respectable person. He is giving the child a role model, someone to use as a base for how to judge how they would rule in the future. The child, for the record, doesn't know his own lineage. He just thinks that he was lucky enough to have been joined with them, and has gains the favor of Zadai for whatever reason it is.
How old is the boy?
It's hard to tell. I've never met a half-dwarf before. If I were to guess, because obviously he doesn't know, if I were to guess, 11, 12. Again, it's hard to tell.
What would be the typical point of maturity for a dwarf?
Dwarves could happen much later in life, 30, 40, somewhere in there before they're truly seen as a respectable adult. Certainly younger than that by human standards, and put to work at a much younger age. But even in Redania, they have their laws for when a regent must then give the throne back to the rightful king. And it is a regent that sits there now, even if, as stated, looked over by the overseers of Redania. And I'm actually trying to remember what age you take over as king. Is it 15? How old was
I think it's
Radovid
like
when he took over?
Hmm.
Because he was a boy.
It might be different for the Witcher world, but like I know historically in medieval times it was like 16. Like,
I
he
think
legally came of age.
I think Radovid was like 12 or 13 when his dad died, and so he had to wait a few years. I just can't remember what year he took over. So it would be a few years away is when he would officially take over. But just because he's too young to rule as direct king doesn't mean that an appropriate regents can't be put in place, and so on and so forth. Like, there's a lot of politics that go behind, how this is done. You know what I mean? So
Of course, yeah.
I would be willing, if this child shows himself to be a worthy king and someone I would fight for, I would be more than willing to back him. If it comes down to that, there's still plenty of time until then.
I have a feeling we're all going to be quite satisfied with what kind of man this boy turns out to be.
That is reassuring.
But that's only because I personally have invested time and effort into that, weighing in my... I'm not the only one here. I'm not the mastermind behind this. This was brought to me, and I am reacting accordingly. But it seems as though you're all still a bit torn as to which way you would like to go and whether or not you think that this is... I suppose, let me ask this. What do you have to gain or lose in aiding in this cause?
A hefty pile of gold and a title.
Promised by people whose word is shaky at best.
What if a new king was to offer you a different pile of gold with a different title?
It's not going to happen. It's bullshit. The Redanians would never allow a dwarf to sit upon that throne. Half dwarf or not. He looks dwarf enough.
I would like to ask you something, Melvin. Has he been, or is he being trained in the ways of the court?
Again, that's why he sits with Zadai. That's Zadai's task. Zadai is no fool. His background is varied. And Zadai has not always sat in the camp that he's in now. He's exposed the boy to different things with the people he's met. But most importantly, he keeps the boy from other branches of the Scoia'tael. Most importantly, he does not let him near them. Doesn't let them hear their words. Doesn't let them weigh in with their hatred or with their vitriol.
Good.
He looks to.
So you see, he's being given the best chance of becoming a fair ruler in the future.
When you say that, he looks at Tal and he says, "If he's given a chance."
Indeed, if.
Well, I know that this isn't something that can be decided here and now. You need to see how things play out and make your move as you go. Witchers aren't the type that come up with one plan and stick to it. They often think on their feet. And it seems as though your friends are, to one degree or another, similar enough. So, let me ask this then. Do you intend to be freed of your contract? Do you intend to, at the very least, not aid the witch hunters in your task?
I would like to be freed of my contract, yes. I believe Leonard feels the same.
When Bastian says that, you notice that Bran gives you like a clear nod of appreciation.
Thank you for your time, Melvin. I've personally got a lot to consider.
He slowly nods at that and says, "Well then, I am here to aid my allies and not to bring them strife. I suppose the two of you should probably step out for a little while. Maybe you have things to discuss." He says, specifically referring to Tal and Leonard.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess we'll
Al turns to Bastian before he walks out and says, Don't let them talk you into believing these fairy tales."
He retorts with saying, "Fairy tales like that of vampires and godlings, fairy tales like drachnids and sneckers, fairy tales like all other creatures that go bump in the night."
Al just stomps out.
No, I think a different one he's referring to. One of politics and kings.
When they leave, he kind of like lowers his head for a bit, shakes it, and looks back up and says, "I'm not practiced in this." To the two of you, he says, "I'm not practiced in this. Convincing people to have hope, convincing people to fight for a cause. This is not what I've spent my life studying and learning to do. I don't spend my time in the courts. That's other people's jobs. I've confirmed the bloodline, thrown in with their lot, and aid in the ways that I can. It's strange to be the person to try to convince others to have this perspective. So I'm not going to try any further. It's not what I'm good at and not what I intend to do moving forward. You just kind of came to me, and so I gave my hands. But that's not why you came to me originally. That was coincidence. You came to me looking for supplies. Supplies I have. I can't in good conscience give supplies to those that might be the enemies of my allies. So instead, I'll give supplies to those that would like to aid them. And hopefully you can turn their minds. You're looking for various things to aid yourselves in your cause. And so let me tell you what it is that I have. Bits of control. I've already answered that question for you. I cannot do that for you. But I do have other supplies for you. When you first had met me, you had seen that I was over at a florist shop, and I deal with other shops looking for rarities nearby. People that come and go, selling the various things they offer, or just carrying it along them because they happen to pick it by chance, don't necessarily realize the significance of what it is that they carry. And so I collect rare goods. I say this because if you are looking to add to your Witcher brews, your portents or whatever they're called to Bastion, I have rare items that you can use to enhance them, to make them stronger, rather than probably the low quality swill that you've been using to get the job done. More or less the way this converts to is that you can actually, you know how you as you kill monsters, you gain experience points?
Yeah.
What you can do is at the rate of 2 gold per 1 XP, you can, 1 gold per 1 XP, you can actually buy more rare goods to enhance your different potions. And so the way that those kind of work out is they gain different degrees of power based off of the percentage of rare supplies that you use to beef them up. So if you do like my brain's not working for a second. If you do like 10% rare supplies, that actually increases them considerably. You can do 25% or 50% rare supplies versus the normal supplies, and that'll give like 3 different tiers of upgrade to the quality that they do. So what does that realistically mean? If you were to do like a 10% increase in rare supplies for a potion that lasts an hour, it actually lasts you an hour and a half. 25 will last you 2 hours, and 50% upgrade will actually last you for the entirety of a day. So like an 8-hour period. So, let's say it's like a first level potion to cost 101 experience points for you to do. You'd spend 50 gold to make that last instead a whole day. Okay. So that's kind of like how that converts. You currently keep track of your XP on your character sheet under the XP category. You keep this under the items category, like how much like rare XP you've purchased with gold pieces. That's how that translates. Continuing on in game. I have charms that require a little bit of a tuning with your blood that can do various things, like in the most critical of times, keep you alive, hold you together well enough that you can survive the moment of turmoil, or even hold even the most crucial of diseases at bay. Maybe not things like the rots that a mummy carries on them, but certainly anything that you'd find in a tavern or a plague-wrought town. These items would enhance the constitution of your blood. I have, and he actually pulls out a 4-leaf clover, and this is something that you guys, without even him kind of saying what it is, I have a handful of these. 4-leaf clovers, the way these work is you actually invoke them as a bonus action, and it gives you +1 to ability checks and saving throws for the duration of a day. So you can kind of like use them in the middle of an action, of like a turn, and you can have those for in a whole day, +1 to saves and ability checks versus skill checks. But most importantly, probably the things that you'd be most interested in, he says to Bastion, would be the weapons that I offer. I had a contact in Craig, one that, from what I understand, has recently left us on this world. He had delivered supplies to me directly, of high-quality weapons that he crafted using Mahawken steel. Mahawken steel that was gained from his friends that live deep in the mountains, if you catch my meaning. These weapons, I would turn most of them over to Zodai and his dwarves, so that they would have quality supplies should they come to arms with those that hunts them. But I kept a few for myself for sale. So I do have well-crafted Mahawken steel weapons, if that's something that you'd be interested in. But even beyond that, whether it be Mahawken steel or one that you carry with you, I know rituals to invoke blades with blood. I could enhance them using magics to soak those weapons in blood and allow them to take in some of the magics that exist there. And who it is that gives that blood changes the result of what it is that the blade can do. And the type of metal that's used, whether it be silver or steel, also changes the effect that blood imbues upon the blade.
How much would it be for one of these weapons and the blood infusing.
He nods slightly nods slowly, and he says, "Are you referring to Mahawken steel?"
Yes.
More or less, Mahawken steel. The way it equates down to out of game is it's going to be 400 gold plus the original cost of the weapon, whatever it says in the PHB. And the reason for that is the person that crafted it was the friend that you had that died, and then you had the godling in his place.
Aelin, yeah.
And this is very good steel, so it actually counts as a +1 weapon for the purpose of mechanics, even if it's not, even if it might not be considered a magical weapon for the purpose of overcoming damage reduction. You know what I mean? So +1 attack rolls, +1 damage.
Yeah.
So he says more or less like holding out a longsword, which top of my head I think are like 15 gold. I know that's 3.5, might be 5.0 as well, but he holds up this and as an example says this would be 415. But as for the blood-soaked weapons, again, what ability comes from what type of metal used and whose blood it is? And that literally means the party's blood, or even potentially the blood of others that you could bring here to sacrifice or whatever you could do, but that's not what's readily available.
Boy. Blood for the blood god.
Those aren't cheap. He actually says this is a flat rate because I know it's expensive and hard for others to come by. I do it more for experimentation and less for profit. It runs you 2,500. But as an example of what it is that it does, a steel sword soaked with cat blood transitions the rules of flanking from +2 to advantage.
This is 2,500 gold.
So that is one example of what it can do, and it considered magical.
Cat Witcher count as cat's blood?
Cat Witcher specifically we're referring to.
You said cat.
Unfortunately,
So I was just imagining one night at Bastia just.
Come here, kitty.
It's actually a process. Most of these items are a process, but we're over that in a minute. I'm sorry, Dunce, please.
Yeah, sorry, Dance.
I don't have the coin for either of that. And how much was that charm you mentioned? The one that would keep you alive?
Those go for... sorry. The Periaptive Wound Closure or the Periaptive Health, which is the disease one.
Wound closure, probably.
Okay. He holds this out and he says, this requires a little maintenance, so it's only 350. By little maintenance, the way it works is like after you've used it 3 times, you just have to make a DC 15 survival check to get more Belize fruit to like kind of like soak into it. But that's very easy to do, and it comes fully worked. So more or less, it doesn't recharge at dawn. It recharges by you making a DC check. Not a big deal. But now, before you continue with your roleplay, Dunce, Rick, I believe you hold the party spoils. How much does the party have in their bank?
Bran carries 447 gold on him.
Okay.
I've got 250.
Because fucking nobody else can be trusted with it, apparently.
I've got some money.
And the clovers, for the record, are, let me just actually change this here, are 75 gold. But they last for a whole day for +1 through checks, you know.
That's alright, I've got 12 gold.
Oh, my apologies. I should note that it lasts for a whole day, but it's +1 checks for the party. Because it's like good luck charm for the party. You know what I mean? And so in Witcher Canon, you guys actually use, I think it's 2 different quests, one in Witcher 1 and one in Witcher 3, where there's actually like you actually give somebody a 4-leaf clover and actually gives them the luck to not be like waylaid by people like at night and so on and so forth and da-da-da. But just for a more simple rules mechanic here, the luck gives the whole party a +1 to saves and a +1 to skill checks for the day. 75 gold. But one person uses a bonus action to more or less invoke the magics of it. Okay, so that being said, you know what I mean, he kind of like lays this out and says those things. So it's rare supplies, 2 different types of periaps, 4-leaf clovers, Mahawken steel, and blood-soaked blades.
Bran, is there anything that you are interested in? Unfortunately, I don't.
What
have
are the
coin.
mechanics behind the the wound closing pendant charm, whatever.
So it can be used. So the periaptive wound closure. Feel free to Google that 5e periaptive wound closure. But the way it works is it works exactly like that pendant, the periap. Sorry, except it can only be used 3 times before you have to like use a survival check to refill it. So that's super easy because like I believe Bastion's super good at that stuff, so it's not that bad. But more or less, if you are unconscious and bleeding out, it automatically uses 1 use and you just stop bleeding out immediately. And then also one of the things, if you use an HG to heal, whatever you roll, you double that number, and that also uses 1 use of it. So that's not to be confused with the second wind HG that's invoked by as temp HP from viewers, spending them daddies. But you know, if you were to use the periap to do so. So they are it's a really nifty item. It's only 350. You just refill it from time to time. So, anything you guys feel like picking up right now, or like I don't know if you want to get rare supplies for your Witcher potions, or
I would be
Bran
interested.
would be interested in getting the periapt, but like party funds, so
it's up to you guys.
I can cover 250.
If I were to pay for it, I can cover it, no problem. It's just I like checking with the party before I make such a purchase, you know?
Understandable.
I think given the fact that I'm the only one that can use magical healing to help any of you in trouble, means that getting such a periapt would, in a way, benefit everyone.
No, it's always fine when the medic dies first. No one ever dies because of that scenario.
If you'd like, I can talk to the party about it, and you guys can discuss things that I probably wouldn't understand.
That was not in game, for the record.
Yeah.
Are me and Bastion sort of like having this talk?
You guys
to the
are.
side of Malvoon?
I
Or-
imagine because the basement's not large, so you guys are kind of like stepping to the side, having a side conversation. Could he hear you? Maybe, but it's not like he's eavesdropping or chiming in. It's just one of those like you're having a whispered aside. You know, it feels natural. Don't worry. You're not saying like, oh, we should kill him. You know, so you don't have to worry about anything like that. He understands.
No,
You know.
How should we take it?
Bastion, Bran's gonna lean in slightly at this point, and he's like, "There is still that book we've been studying."
There is. Do you think we should show it?
He's a blood mage.
Talk to him about that. I'll talk to the party about this wound closure thing.
Alright. I wanted to make sure I double check it with one of you, because this is weighty information.
I understand. I appreciate it. And
Right.
I'll make my move towards the exit.
Okay.
And,
So,
Bran will walk towards Malvoon again.
not a problem. Okay. So go ahead. You walk towards him. waits.
Malvoon, could I have a word with you?
We've had many. Why not a few more?
We met a mage a while ago. He was experimenting with basilisk eggs. He infused them with snake blood.
Oh. And there's clearly a knowing look on his face.
Have you met this person by chance? You seemed
I may have assisted him. What's the
Interesting.
question then?
Well, now that I know you were assisting him, first question would be, why? He was clearly trying to do something that could pose a grave danger to everyone.
I didn't know exactly what his ends were. Just what his just a bits of what his experiments were. What experimentations he was looking to make. And I won't lie, it's very rarely you get an opportunity to work on something new, a different project, leave a mark. I've been so engrossed in this task that I've been doing here that I've not been able to run too many of my own experiments. being stuck in one city with these responsibilities has hindered me. So when somebody came along looking for aid, I was excited to see what results would come of the tasks. You know, I imagine by now that I have talents. I happen to have studied predominantly a very small branch of magic called hemomancy. I'm what you would call a blood magus. And he came to me with an idea, and I wanted to give it a try. So I helped him. I certainly hope you're not giving me any regrets for my actions.
I don't. I understand. His idea was ambitious. Unfortunately, the witches in our party did not quite agree with his approach. And I imagine that it might actually have been for the best. I don't think his intentions were very well towards the populace.
Did any of them hatch?
Not yet.
So some survived.
We actually passed one egg to Sodal.
What?
The witches imagined that such a beast might be able to be some sort of boon, an aid in the defense of the camp.
It's a basilisk. A basilisk has the ability to turn those around it into, well, what we were trying to do. Turn those around it into stone. We were... Oh, no. I suppose I should divulge a little at this point.
Yes, maybe you should.
We were infusing these basilisks with the blood of snakes, and in an attempt to transition from avian to reptilian. But more than that, we had enchanted stones. He happened to be a practitioner of geomancy, and I was hemomancy, and we were using our knowledge of magical stones and the transformation of them, and my ability to alter blood, to make alterations to it with a newly laid egg, or several of them, to make a new creature. A creature that could turn someone into stone with just the look of it. The idea was to make guards that could protect secret... It doesn't matter what the idea was. And you gave them an egg. If this thing works, if my plan worked, our plan worked, and it has full potential at birth, I think I do regret the actions that I've made.
I think I might be coming to some new regrets myself. Oh,
Shit.
dear. I think we'd better ride there come dawn and isolate the situation before it gets too bad.
I cannot. I can't head out now. But I can do this for you. He thinks for a moment, like his brain's kind of scrambling. He's intelligent, he's usually calculated, but clearly he's like thrown off, like completely thrown back by this.
I don't think any of us expected this.
No. And so he's thinking for a moment, and he's like, your companion there, Bastion, his silver weapon is what again, Bran? Dunce?
It's a great sword, isn't it?
It's a great sword, yeah.
No, silver weapon, sorry, steel weapon.
Oh, steel weapon is the longsword.
Okay. He actually will say, I'll make a bargain with you then, because I cannot leave here. I have business to attend to, and I will give to you here now, or before you leave at the very least, and you should leave soon. I'll give to you a longsword made of Mahawken steel, a gift to Bastion. If you go there and you're able to defeat this beast, if you're able to stop too much turmoil from happening, if you're able to just... I will soak a blade for you, free of charge. You'll have to sacrifice, of course, the blood to do so, but I will soak a blade for you, free of charge.
Just got bloodline around to do that?
He has to take the blood from you guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Like, for example, you could have a source in, like, drip on your blade, and that would make it, like, I don't know, fucking magical, boy.
It'd make me hate it.
Yeah. Really.
That's why I'm giving it to Bastion, to fucking spite you. He just looks him in the eyes like, I think haste is of the issue here. Could you hand me one of those wound closing pendants while we're at it then? And I'll, like, take out the gold.
Okay, good. I was about to say awkward.
I wasn't expecting a freebie.
Yeah,
Okay,
just
cool.
give me that shit.
He's like, hey, here's like 2,900 gold. Can I have some more, please?
He hands it to you. You hand him the sack of coin. He doesn't count it. He trusts your amounts because he knows he's going to see you again in the future.
It was 375, right?
350 actually. Yeah. And so
350, cool.
yep. So you give him the coin. He gives you the pendant, and he says, "You need to, before this to work for you, you need to spend about an hour's time, a simple prick of the finger, and press your finger against it." And he shows like a point for you to do so, and just allow it to soak in the blood that you put into it. It can only attune to one person at a time, but after it's attuned to you, as long as you wear it about your neck, you'll be able to do so. I have more things that I'd like to discuss with you, but unfortunately, now is not the time for us to waste with expose. So,
Yeah, I think haste is of the issue. Should the beast not have hatched yet, what should we do with the egg? Should we take it somewhere? Should we destroy it?
And now, roll me an insight.
Can I use advantage because I know he is a blood mage and I know he put a ton of work? Sweet.
I'm just chilling outside like, yo, there's this really good pennant in there.
Ah!
He says, we don't know what could happen if the egg is destroyed this far along. We don't know what sort of creature can survive. Could come from the corpse. I think perhaps you should just deliver it back, and I'll look after it as needed. And honestly, you're kind of thinking to yourself with that kind of result. You're thinking to yourself, it honestly seems logical because you've heard of things like botchlings because they've talked about them around you before, and you've read it in your book. So you're like,
I've seen
you
a
might not be
picture.
wrong.
I've actually seen him in a game. Fucking horrifying, man. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, you don't like babies?
I don't like babies with fucking umbilical cords are fucking swollen to shit. No.
Why not? They're cute.
So you
I'll
more or
bury
less-
one under your household.
you believe him, not because, like, obviously you know this, he probably would like to, you're not an idiot, right? However, you do understand that he might not be wrong. So
Yeah.
so you hand the pendant to him, he gives it to you, and he more or less just says, when you're doing the attuning, just last bit, when you're doing the attuning, just don't overly exert yourself while doing so. Do it while you're resting.
Understood.
You go to leave.
Yeah,
and-
I'll take the Mohican steel blade with me.
He says he'll get it for you because he doesn't have it here. So he says he'll get it for you right before you leave. So more or less, like, he'll meet you by the gate of town. And as you go to leave, he says, yeah, you just go to leave. That's fine. And so you go to meet up with them right outside the door. So you go to meet up with them. We'll handle that quick little chat and you guys heading north of town in a moment. Why don't we just take a quick little break? So we're gone for about 5 minutes. Pee-poo, do what you do. This one will actually be 5 minutes as opposed to whatever it was last time. So see you all very shortly. All right, bye-bye.
Bye. I'm gonna get a cool blood blade.